Looking back when she was young, living wild and free. Her life an empty book, filled with magic memories. Who is she now? The girl who fell down, dreaming of the world she used to know so long ago. Dreaming of the world she used to know so long ago. All the stories in her mind, they will never grow old, bringing comfort to her life as new chapters do unfold. Who is she now? The girl who fell down. Looking back when she was young, living wild and free. Her life an empty book, filled with magic memories.
Check one, check two. There we go. Let's get the cam going. Hello. Hello, hello. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another advanced social journalism class, or technically the first. It's really hard to keep track. For those who are not familiar with class and may just be chilling out in the stream, welcome to my class. We are going to learn today about how to create a blog, specifically how to build one using Wix, because for those who are in my class at Mohawk College, that is your big assignment for the next couple of weeks. So let's give things a couple of minutes for people to make their way in. I see I only have a few people currently in chat. We'll see if we can't get more on their way. Beyond that, how's everyone doing? Are we keeping up with lockdown and COVID and just kind of what our new normal has become? Personally, for myself, speaking for myself, oh, here we go. For immediate question, e-learning egg. Do we have to use Wix? Tell you what, email me if you have a personal preference or are very familiar with another platform. I'm going to say, generally speaking, yes, but email me and we'll see if we can sort something out. At the very least, Wix is what I'm going to be teaching you. So if you're hoping to learn another platform, you're going to need to look elsewhere for resources. Okay, beauty. So yeah, Wix is what I'll teach you. There are all sorts of different platforms like Blogger and WordPress, which I personally despise in a lot of ways. Wix is easy. Wix is cheap. Well, it's free. But yeah, how are we all doing with everything? Personally speaking for myself, it's been a interesting week. It's been kind of a lazy week, which is nice. Last week I was going a million miles a minute. Every day I was working on classes, working on work, doing all sorts of things. This week I've been taking it kind of chill. In some ways because I wanted to just chill out. In other ways, just, I don't know. Again, it's a lazy week. How are y'all doing? I also realized I don't have my water here. Everything's kind of thrown off kilter right now. We'll give it a couple of minutes for people to make their way in. I have a few bits of news lined up for you guys, but for those who are in chat right now, what's new in the news? What's going on? What have you heard about this last week? Also going to turn down the music just a tad more there. Well, today might be just a lighter class, which is no problem because I'll be uploading this video and some shorter tutorial video versions of this tomorrow is when I'll be doing it. So why don't we, let's see, it's 3 after. We'll give it 2 minutes. We'll give it till 5 after, and then I'll jump into what's new in the news. So I managed to scour up a few things today between running around. My internet kind of went all wonky about an hour ago. So I've been dealing with those little fires to make sure I was able to get on stream today. I'm also happy to say that for most students, with a couple of exceptions, most students' final marks are up on Canvas. I'll have them finalized and properly sorted out sooner rather than later. But yeah, so feel free to take a look at your marks. All in all, most of y'all did pretty well. I'm happy. So without any further vamping, it is 5 after, so let's get into today's news. Let's switch over to display. Also going to get rid of my Instagram handle. You'll notice again on Canvas that things have been a bit more populated than they were last week. So we have an online class guide that I just posted up there. We have all the different aspects of your blog assignment all ready to look at whenever you want to check them out. I've broken up the assignment into 4 parts, just that way we don't get to the end of this class and kind of everyone's panicking, right? And at the end of the day, if we're doing a blog, we need to be able to keep up with regular posting, regular creation. And so I've made these assignments much smaller, but made them weekly assignments. If that becomes an issue, let me know. As per usual, just send me an email. Looking at this week's content. Currently, we don't have a ton of content because I have tutorial videos that I'm going to be posting tomorrow, as well as the video from this live stream. But we do have some news. Let's start with Wild Waterworks. Just a little piece from CBC Hamilton that Wild Waterworks is actually at this point more expensive to reopen this year than it would be to keep it closed. It would cost them more money to get everything up and running and staff it and make sure that that everything's running properly and safely than it is to just take the hit and not reopen. That said, I can't exactly think of anyone right now who's like, yeah, middle of pandemic, I want to go to a water park. Which obviously is part of why opening it right now they'd start hemorrhaging money. But yeah, so moving on, a bit more COVID-19 news. A vaccine developed in Saskatchewan, has been shown to be effective with ferrets, which is great. The ferrets are not going to get COVID. That's good news. Let's watch the little video, because why not? So give me a quick second to kill the music.
You ready? As far as vaccine contenders go, this one at Oxford University is racing ahead, already being tested in humans. It's one of the 8 top COVID-19 vaccines already at that clinical trial phase, and more than 100 are trying to get there. Scroll down that list, half a dozen Canadian labs are racing to the finish line too. Among them, researchers in Saskatoon who are testing a vaccine on ferrets. They just got to look at the data, and they're smiling.
So very exciting indeed. They were immunized twice, and then they were infected with the virus last week. And we had a peek at the data last night, and it looks very promising.
Promising as in?
The vaccine is working.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yes. So we're very, very excited about it.
Exciting, as the global effort to develop a vaccine moves faster than it ever has in the history of science. At the University of Waterloo, researchers are developing a DNA-based vaccine that can be delivered through a nasal spray. Top of mind, the potential for any vaccine to backfire and exacerbate disease.
These are things which have to be very closely tested, and having a variety of different approaches may be the solution toward overcoming obstacles such as that.
Safety is key, so is accessibility, and why Ottawa is funding manufacturing capacity here. And regulators are starting to discuss an emergency release of any vaccine while it's in the final phases of testing, as long as it's proven to be safe. This expert says that could be as early as this fall and would go to those who need it most.
When you have a new vaccine in a pandemic, there always has to be a process for saying who gets priority, who's at most at risk, who has the greatest chance of severe disease.
Back in the UK, early results are expected in a matter of weeks, and one piece of a global vaccine puzzle will become even clearer. Joanna Brimiliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
There we go. So, well, as far as this piece of news goes, all over the world, there's little bits of progress being made on different vaccines. Of course, just because it goes well with ferrets doesn't mean, in this case of this one, doesn't mean that it will be safe for humans. Still need a lot of testing. There's a lot of several different trials for it to go through. But there is promise on all this stuff. That said, anyone who tells you there will be a vaccine for sure within the year, it's probably not the case. A lot of politicians are hinting at those promises, namely one that regularly shows up in news. So I do have one other video. That's why I'm not tossing on the music right away. Bit of news from CBC Kids, of all things. But just because it's not necessarily tailored for us doesn't mean that this news is not news. Plus, it's a nice little story. There we go. Let's get this music back on. But just a bit of good news, and cute animals are always welcome here. There we go. So yeah, just a bit of good news with regard to baby bison and bison populations. There's a whole article attached to this, but you can never say no to a cute little baby bison. So up next, I grabbed a couple more pieces of good news for you guys. And for those just joining in chat, if you got a bit of news, feel free to shout it out. Let me know how you're doing. We're just going through a bit of news before we start talking about the meat of today's class. So next up, we're moving on to Flavortown, Flavor Country, whatever it's called. Guy Fieri and what he's been doing for restaurant workers, as well as the fact that he plans a nacho making competition with Bill Murray to raise more money. So Guy Fieri has been involved with, let me double check the name of the Restaurant Employee Relief Fund. He created the fund, and he's raised, well, him and the fund have raised $22 million to help with restaurant employees who've been out of work and who have needed economic relief during all the shutdowns across America. So he's been working with different CEOs, companies like, well, Pepsi, Coke, Uber Eats. But that's not exactly where the story ends. Yes, it's great. He raised a lot of money. And it's provided 40,000 workers across the country with $500 grants to help them get through all of this tumultuous time. It's not the biggest grant in the world, but it's something, and it's coming from someone who cares. But to raise more money, Bill Murray has joined the effort and is going to host they're both engaging in a nacho creation, nacho cooking, nacho making showdown. It's a cute little poster made for it. It's going to be, I believe, fully live streamed. Yep, on Facebook Live this May 15th at 5 p.m. All the money, all the donations that are raised during this time will go toward the Restaurant Employee Relief Fund. And, well, it's being hosted by Carla Hall and judged by Shaquille O'Neal and Terry Crews. It should definitely be an interesting event, that's for sure. Yeah, it'll be, you can watch it on Food Network's Facebook page. But I thought that was an interesting little story to just pull up. Finally, one that really speaks to me is people have been using sidewalk chalk for more than just drawing on sidewalks with their kids. There have been people who have been going around identifying different plants growing on the sidewalks or on the side of the path. Just to call attention to just the diversity of different plants. In this case, specifically in the UK and France. But there's no reason that we couldn't do the exact same thing here. The campaign this is part of is called More Than Weeds. Essentially, this is to draw more attention to that campaign in and of itself. But it's an interesting little social experiment to see kind of what we just, walk over, step on a daily basis. And how once we give it a name, it becomes more meaningful. It becomes something where we might take interest in. So that's it for what I've kind of curated for you guys today. If you do have any other news you wanted to shout out, feel free to. I'm going to jump into how we create a Wix blog. So, without further ado, pardon me, I do have my notes just so I don't fall off onto a huge tangent with this kind of thing. So, before anything else, we're going to go to Wix.com. Where I have a whole bunch of sites already created. You're going to need to create an account. Super straightforward. I'm not going to walk you through that process just because it works the same way as making an account for literally anything else. I think all you need is an email address, which I know you all have because I communicate with you guys with it through it. Once you've got your account made, you're going to find the button to create a new site. They're all over Wix because Wix is designed to ask you every 5 seconds if you want to make a site. So we'll click right on that. Now we're going to get into it at this point. Because we're creating blogs, I recommend when it asks you what kind of website you want to create, I recommend clicking blog If you don't want to, that's cool. There's all sorts of other options here. If you're a photographer, go photography. Just because you don't click blog doesn't mean you can't create one. It just gives you different templates. For example, if you're a musician, you might click music rather than blog. But in our case, I'm going with blog. Here's the big split on this website. It's honestly pretty straightforward. There are two options we can choose. We can choose to work from a template, pre-made template, or we can let Wix ADI build our website for us. I can't stop you from choosing either of these options. ADI is far easier. You basically answer a couple of questions and it gives you a website that you can then further customize. Choosing a template requires a bit more work off the top, but I find it's a bit more customizable if you like to get into the nitty-gritty of your designs. If you want to make sure your galleries look a very specific way, if you want to make sure your blog font is a super specific font, this is a really good way to get those things out of the way early on rather than fix them later. That said, if you're not big into like creative design and graphic arts and like web design and all that, if that doesn't sound like something that's at all interesting to you, ADI is not a bad option. I'm going to choose a template because I need to show you some other features of this. So I pick choose a template. Then we get a whole bunch of different templates. There's dozens and dozens of different templates we can work from. Specifically, I'm going to go with, in my case, food and travel. This is the point at which we can kind of narrow things down to what we're looking for. Hey there, Layla. I'm glad you could join the class. What I'm going to do, if I hover over a template, I can select edit or view. If I'm not sure I want to use it, I'm going to click view. So when I click view and give it a second to load, this is what my site will wind up looking like. Of course, I might change the photos. I'll use different blog posts. I am not this woman here. I would change that photo too. But this is the overall view of the blog. We have different categories for blog posts. We have an About Me page that we can click on. Pretty straightforward. I'm not in love with this design. You may be, and if you are, click edit this site. I'm not, so I'm going to back out of it. I'm then going to go to, let's say, food blog looks more my style. So I'll view that one. This is more my style. It's a bit more straightforward. There's definitely room where I can improve this. So I'm going to click edit this site. And this is where we get into, again, that nitty-gritty that I'm talking about, where we start to customize things. Ultimately, the first thing I want to say is that ultimately, if you like a photo that's built into the template, I'm not going to stop you from using it for your blog. Make sure it makes sense, make sure it fits in. There's all sorts of criteria on the assignment I've given you, which you can find on Canvas for those who didn't see. At the end of the day, I don't expect you to take super high quality photos with your $5,000 camera and build a custom blog perfectly from scratch. I just expect you to fulfill the criteria of the assignment. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the features here. So, the first thing let's talk about is our pages. So on the site, we have all sorts of different pages. You'll notice the header does not change, but if I click on the menu, up top, where it says page home, I can choose one of the other pages. Let's say about. There we go. We have it loaded up. So again, the header doesn't change and the footer doesn't change. Things on the top and the bottom. We can customize it, but they'll be the same no matter what page we go to. What changes is the middle. So in this case, we're on our About page. If we wanted to go to our blog page, we're going to get this one, which is all posts, and then it would show, there we go, our blog posts. And it even shows the categories our posts might fall under. We'll talk about this more in a minute. The only other things worth noting are, for sake of viewing this stuff, right now we're viewing in desktop mode, this little computer here. If we click beside it, we can switch over to viewing our blog in mobile mode. Because the cool thing about Wix, and why I really like it, is that it's a free site you can build that is not only customized for desktop, but you can also customize it for mobile. And the default build is honestly pretty nice in and of itself. I'll switch back to desktop for our use. Now, let's look at some of the editor options. We've got all these little menus off to the side. So the first is menu and pages. This lets us customize. If I click site menu here, we can customize what's on our menu. We can add new pages, which we'll do in a few minutes. We can customize different pages of our blog, something that we don't necessarily need to do, but if you wanted to get more advanced, you could. We can even customize how our pages transition. In this case, on this site, they crossfade. Moving on, we can customize the background of any page. If I wanted to use bananas, I could use bananas. I'm not going to, so I'm going to click the undo button in the top corner. Well then. Since the bananas won't go away, let's choose a color and just make... There we go. I'll just change the color back to white. Now we just have a photo now. Such is life. Sometimes our sites do not behave. Sometimes we have to refresh them. I'm not going to right now for sake of keeping what we have on here. I'll go back to our home page. So after that, after our background, we can add any sorts of little items we want to add. We'll be using, again, this feature a little bit later. But we can add light boxes, contact forms, social buttons, just different shapes, different strips, all sorts of things. If you were to buy the kind of upgraded version of Wix, you could put an online store on your blog. That's a whole nother layer of complexity I'm not going to dive into for you guys, but still. After that is an app marketplace. I don't feel it necessary. Then we have media, which is, well, I'm asking you guys to put videos or photos in your blogs. This is where you're going to upload your media, where it's all going to be stored, where you can click and drag and add it into your piece. And then finally, we have our blog manager. This is going to be a key component for you guys because this is where you're going to create posts, manage posts, make sure that they're all in order. It's where you're putting your writing, your photos, everything. I recommend getting familiar with the blog manager. Give me one more chance. I'm going to just try to change the background of this back. There we go. So I'll use off gray. There. Now we don't have a photo and we don't have a video, which is nice. After that, we have a few other little settings that are just kind of finicky. We have our site settings. There's all sorts of things here. The biggest one, of course, is save, preview, and publish your site. We'll talk about that in a minute. We have other settings, which are business info, social share, tracking and analytics. We'll talk about analytics in a couple of weeks. We have our tools, and the first thing I recommend any of you do is when you get on your site, go to tools and click on toolbar. It's a useful thing to have up. Dev mode you don't have to worry about. Help is help, upgrades, upgrade. Beyond that, you have your undo and redo buttons, your save, your preview, and your publish, which I just mentioned a second ago. So before we get into actually editing a page, I'm going to talk about save, preview, and publish. Saving a site will essentially save our site, just like saving any Word document or anything like that. I recommend clicking on it anytime you make a big change on your site, because this interface isn't perfect. It does glitch out sometimes. You want to make sure that you've saved before it glitches. Preview will just, if you click it, take you to a preview of the site as a viewer would see the site, as a guest would see it. So here's where we can actually see, does the menu button work? What happens when we click on a blog post? There we go. So we can even see what our blogs look like in person. So I'm going to click to go back to editor. And then the only other button that is super important is publish. Publish is how we get our site to be operational, so that when we share the URL, people will actually find a working site. Normally, you would not publish your site until you've completely finished it. You've got like all your pages sorted out. You've got your blog posts ready, at least a few to start, and then you start posting more. In the case of our sites, when you have your template up, like when you have a site built, even if it's super, super rough, it looks pretty much like the template, I want you to publish your site right away. Because your first assignment, one of your marks is simply giving me a working link for your site. Just so I know you've got something started. So when you publish, you'll get get a free Wix domain. You can give it a name. So we'll call this one, I'll call it Food Blog. Hopefully you have a better name for your website. And then you would save and continue. And that link that was right there is the one that you're going to share out to people. Site was saved. Publish now. There we go. It's published. That gives you the link that you're going to share with me. You don't have to share with the rest of the world until you've got this to the point you want it at. Hell, you don't have to share this with the rest of the world if you don't want to share your blog with the rest of the world. It's not something I'm going to judge you on. So let's get to editing, which is kind of my favorite part of all this. I had someone bring me water. So the first thing we're going to do is, since we're in editing mode, we're going to go up to menus and pages here on the side menu. We're going to make sure we're on site menu and click add page. You see we have a new page immediately created. Also, I'm just going to close some of these tabs just so the site speeds up a little bit. So this is where you'll call your page whatever you want to call it. One I recommend is having a contact page. So I'm going to call it contact. So if I go into, there we go. Now when I have contact selected, I can click out of the menu and you'll see I just have a blank page. I've got nothing here. It's empty space that I get to fill with whatever I want to fill. Which means we need to go to the add function. I'll click add. Now, since it's a contact page, I could use contact forms. And that'd be all well and good. All I do is click and drag. And once I've dropped it in, it's there. That's cool by me. What I'm going to do is just click so that the entire form is highlighted and hit delete. What I'm actually going to add is I'm going to go to add, I'm going to go to strip, and I'm going to click on contact. These are already some pre-built contact strips that we can import in. They look a bit better than making something from rough if you're not into all the graphic design stuff. So let's say, no, I'll go with the super simple yellow one here. So it's huge, so it'll, yeah, pop up. Then I'm going to drag it down. There. So now we have to sort out a few things. First of all, this thing is huge compared to the rest of our page. It's stretched all the way to the side. So I've selected it. I'm going to click this double arrow here. Whenever you select something, you're going to get those buttons popping up. Those are your options for editing. So I'm clicking on just the yellow background and choosing those two arrows and making sure my strip is stretched only to the page. There we go. That pops in a bit better, right? The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, in my header, I'm clicking and dragging my photo, just like you would anything else. I'm grabbing that top little button and dragging it up. I'm then going to drag my photo over so that it's closer to the middle of the page. There we go. Just this way it lines up a bit better with my block. The last thing I want to change is my contact page does not need to be bright lemon yellow. It doesn't suit any of the other graphics on my page. So all I do is click on it, change strip background, and then I can choose a different color. I'll choose, I like this lighter gray. We can add any sorts of colors. You can change your site color palette if you so wish. Going back to color, you can add specific custom colors if you wish, which is as easy as choosing a hue, choosing a saturation. I'm going to cancel that one. I like this gray. There we go. Now, of course, we have all sorts of things like text to adjust as well. So this is where we click on our text. We can double click on it and literally just adjust. So here is my, since I don't have a business address, I always welcome new input. Sorry if I make a typo, I'm not looking. On my blog, if you want to drop me a line, please do so here. So I've written in my text. I don't necessarily love the size of it. I can adjust the size of it. I just want it 2 lines. Yeah. If I want to change the font, I can change the font. If I want to change just the theme, there are all sorts of different themes you can program. Bold, italic, underline, the font color. There. Font highlight, add a link to something. How you align it. All these functions are just built into this little box here. If you want to give it an effect, like a drop shadow. Oh, that looks real blurry. The drop shadow is not the best effect for that. So there's all sorts of different little, like, you can get down to the tiniest detail with this sort of thing. I'm particularly bad for that, but I love it too. My recommendation is kind of split the difference. You don't need to make a perfect blog. If you want to make this something that's going to live beyond the class, like after I grade it, you want to make it into a blog that you'll use on a regular basis. That's absolutely cool. In fact, I do hope there are some of you who want to do something like this after we're done with class. Once we're done with class is when you can fix things. You have all the time in the world. So don't worry about whether your drop shadow looks perfect. Don't worry about if your header matches your body background colors perfectly. That's not the kind of thing I want you guys worrying about. I'd much rather have you spend that 5 minutes worrying about those colors Spend that worrying about your spelling and grammar on your posts. Spend that worrying about whether your photo is an interesting photo. Worry about your content. Then we'll work on the design. That said, on here we've got pretty much everything we need to sort out. The only other thing I want to point out is that if you click on your social bar, which in some places is at the very top, here I have it on the header, the body content, and the footer. When you click on it, you can set your social links. Again, if this is something you want to tie to your actual work, if you're a photographer, if you're an artist, if you're a blogger, that's cool. So when you set your social links, you can click on each icon and then change the link attached to it. That way people are sent to the right place when they click on your Facebook logo. Same goes with the form. If you did want to tie this to your email and get actual feedback, all you do is go to form settings, and then it will go to kind of an inbox on Wix, but you can set it up so that you get email notifications. Beyond that, let's do a slightly more complex edit, because this one pretty straightforward. If I go up top and click on my About page. So, there we go. Now it's loaded. The first thing you're going to notice is that this About page has a Contact Me section, which I don't want, because I've already created another page, right? So again, this interface is pretty user-friendly. I'm going to click and drag to highlight everything I don't want. I then hit delete. So now my About Me section looks really weird, aside from the fact that that woman is clearly not me. I urge you to maybe have, let's say, an About Me section, and then if we highlight that, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste, we get a double, and then we'll just click and drag it all so that it lines up. We know it lines up when we get these these pink lines. Suddenly we have two About Me sections, but if we double click on the text, we can do things like about the blog. There we go. We can change up the photo. We can get rid of this little block of text here. We can make this photo crop to, we could have it cropped so that it's a, come on, there we go, bit more of a portrait. Line it up, and then change the image to, if my blog is about food, I can go click change image. If I don't have a photo I've already shot, I can do things like go to explore media from Wix and type food. What kind of food do I want? Let's type soup and see what we get. Might not get anything. We got soup. We got plenty of soup. I want something that's a bit taller. Always go for some ramen. So if I choose that image, it's completely free for me to use that photo. There is no restrictions on this photo. So what I'm going to do is I'm cropping it so that it's a bit more tall. I'll hit OK. Line it up with that photo and then stretch it out so that it fills a bit more space. And then again, we'll change our font or our text. So here's a paragraph about my blog. I should really just get a lorem ipsum generator, but I just fill up space. And we just fill it up so that it fills up that area. All these little things are completely customizable. What I care more about is that your writing is free of errors, that your writing is compelling, your writing is interesting. That's what I'm here to judge, is your ability to make content. I'm not here to judge the fact that your photo is slightly unaligned from the other photo. I don't care. Like I do, as a graphic artist or a graphic designer, I do care about that kind of thing, but this is not the assignment that I'm going to care about it with. So the only other edit, first of all, if anyone has any questions, please shout out, because there's a lot of this is really straightforward, but I've been doing this for a long time, so it's hard to tell what to me is easy and what to me is hard. But while I'm waiting on some questions, if there are any, I'm going to click on the My Blog function in the sidebar. And I'm going to click on Manage Posts first. When I click on Manage Posts, once this loads, I can see all the posts that are built into my blog. Obviously, these ones that exist here are pre-made. They're just nonsense. They're not useful to me in any way. But I have options here. Like, if I do have posts, I can edit them. I can select them to duplicate, to move to the trash, to view. I can change my author name here as well, because I signed up under the email Hammer and Lens, but my author name is Christopher Arndt. Oh. So now all my posts will say by Christopher Arndt. Most importantly, and the thing we're all here to do, is create a new post. Just like editing, this is super straightforward. It's a simple matter of we add a title. So we can add in text. Subtitle. Here it is. Look at it in all its glory. We might add an image. And if I wanted to add an image, I can click down here, but I can also just click this little plus button and click add an image. The little camera. And just like before, if we have files if we have photos that we shot, we can load them in. And I do recommend trying to at least take a couple of photos for your blog. But if we're just throwing together something really quick, let's say spices. I should probably search under media from Wix. Spices. Yeah, that's a nice little shot there. So we add that to the page. There we go. If we don't want it to be quite so tall, we can adjust its size functions. We can make sure that it aligns to one side of the page or the other, or leave it right in the middle. It really depends what you want to do here. I'm going to add one more space there. After that, we can, here's the body of our post. This would normally be a full paragraph. Yeah. But I'm feeling lazy. So we just keep repeating all these different steps until we have our post. I recommend writing your blog posts. I mentioned last week, I recommend writing your blog post in Word or another text editor rather than writing them in Wix, because Wix misses a lot of spelling and grammar compared to Word. It's always good to have a rough draft to look at before we do our good draft. Because it's really easy to get focused on how this looks rather than the writing itself. Whereas in Word, we don't worry about that so much. So the only other things I want to focus on, there are different things we can add in here. For example, if I wanted after my photo, but before my body, I could add a divider. Just a way to keep things kind of clean and separated. Even the divider has its different functions. What else can we add? well, we can add a gallery of different photos. If we were, let's say, if we're a musician and we're doing a blog post about the last gig we played, albeit most musicians are playing gigs right now, but still, if we have a bunch of photos from the show we played, let's throw a gallery in there. You can throw a GIF in there if you want. There's all sorts of things you can add. The only other function I want to talk about before we move on to some of the settings is if I highlight my text, I get these pop-up options again. Bold, italic, underline, the color or font. One thing worth noting is the title and quote options. So if we click title, we get these different subtitle options. These are really useful for, again, creating subtitles, for differentiating certain parts of our text. And even more so, if in our writing, there is a quote from someone or a piece of text worth really highlighting. Man, for barely being able to see my keyboard, I'm doing really well writing properly. We can click this quote option, which just, again, sets our text out differently from the rest of our blog post. So, honestly, you keep repeating these steps, you keep throwing things in here and there. If you're doing... Let's not make this, if you're doing a, let's say, well, if you're doing a food blog and you want to add recipes, you have a numbered list, bulleted lists. We can adjust our line spacing. We can add a link to another website. All of this is kind of your normal customization functions, but they're worth going over, at least right now. So let's look real quick at the different settings we have here. So post settings, we have our cover image. Let's say I don't want to use this photo as the one you see on the main website. This is where I would adjust it. I can update my cover photo. We can choose our publish date. When I hit publish, when does it publish? Maybe I want to there is a way to schedule post. I forget exactly how. There it is. If I want to post later, instead of clicking publish, I can click the drop arrow and schedule a post to drop, let's say tomorrow at 3:50 p.m. In my normal time zone. The only other things worth mentioning are if we have multiple authors, we don't, so just make sure your name's there. And excerpts. It's always worthwhile in a blog preview to have a little excerpt from your blog. Something that's in there that's worth noting. It's like your little preview. This is where you would type your excerpt. Beyond that, don't worry about SEO for now. I'll be going over that when I go over analytics. If your blog has categories, which is to say different types of content, if you wanted to do recipes, again, we're talking food blog. If you wanted to do recipes versus culinary adventures versus, new culinary techniques that you're learning or teaching, you can have different categories or different types of recipes. That's another one. Categories is as easy as go over to here, click create a category, write it in. There you go. And then just anytime you're making a post, you make sure to select whatever categories it applies to. If it doesn't apply to any, it will just fall in all posts, which works. So I then click publish. My post is published. So let's get out of this dashboard view and see what it looks like on the actual website. There we go. The title is the title I wrote in. The excerpt here is the excerpt I wrote in. Our cover photo is exactly what I had put as our cover photo. It's really that simple. It's already optimized for people to add comments. It's already optimized for people to like. The blogs on Wix are super user friendly. So I recommend, honestly, I could keep talking about all. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah. I could talk about how to do very specific functions. How to add in. Let's see, what could we add? How to add in shapes or boxes and use them to highlight text, or videos, or music. But there's really not a lot that I can just speak about generally for this kind of thing. So, my suggestion is, next chance you get, well, keeping in mind that next week your blog idea is due, and we'll talk about that. Next chance you get, hop on Wix. Start playing around with it. Make a blog, realize it's crap, and then get rid of it and make a new one. Just keep playing with this kind of thing until you get used to it. And it doesn't take long to get used to either. At the end of the day, what I want you to push yourself with is, again, your writing, your photography, the creative skills that go into this, not the creativity of your blog. Feel free to work on that. That's cool. And I'll admire it. I'll respect it. But if you give me a really pretty blog with really crappy writing, there's only so much I can appreciate, right? So with that, let's quick back out of here and talk about the first part of the blog assignment. So I'm just going into Canvas. Again, all our blog assignment is here already. I have a link to the full assignment document, and then I've broken it up into the little sections along with its due dates. So let's pop into, just part 1. There we go. So, it's not even the easiest thing to see. But, this right here. One sec. I'm going to back out and go into Word for this. Blog assignment part 1. There we go. Let's edit it. Let's make it bigger. There we go. For this part of the assignment, part 1, which is due on May 20th, which to my knowledge is a week from today. You made it earlier this week? Absolutely. Yeah, if it's not like a super long-standing pre-existing blog, I have no problem judging you on your new blog. In fact, I encourage it, because if that's something you're going to use in your own time, never mind for the class assignment, then hopefully it will capture more your brand, your style, what you're about, which is awesome. Yeah, I'm more than happy to mark that. So for the first part of the assignment, that said, I don't even need you to really dive into Wix all that much quite yet. All I want is for you to give me a Word document that has a few sentences summarizing what your blog will be about. So my blog is going to be a food blog where I try new ingredients every week and try to incorporate them into new recipes. There. Then I want you to give me a list of at least 5 ideas for posts that you could put on your blog. I'm being nice here. Originally, it was going to be 10 ideas because that's my rule of thumb. I want to have 10 ideas before I even start writing. So give me 5 ideas. They don't need to be long, just a little tiny sentence like, yeah, I'm going to do a post about how I use bok choy in fresh salads. I'm going to do a post about whether sumac is a worthy spice. Whatever. Again, your blog doesn't have to be food. I need a name for your blog. Something that fits your brand, fits your style. If you already have your blog up, just give me the name of that. If not, come up with something interesting. Really try to work it. Don't just call it Chris's food blog. That's boring. Finally, I just need a link, like the URL for your blog. That's why I need you to publish. Just so that you can share it with me so I can see that you actually have a blog up and running. It doesn't need to have content yet. It doesn't need to have photos or anything like that. The template could be completely blank for all I care. I just need to know that that link works. Because it's a link I'll keep going back to mark the other parts of your assignment. So, marking is super easy. You're going to get up to 3 marks for your summary. Depending on how much work you put into your summary, you get more marks. Post ideas, I'm giving you 5. Conveniently the same number of marks as you have to give me for ideas. Wonder why that is. And then finally, just a mark for your blog name, a mark for your blog link. Total of 10 marks. That said, this is worth 20% of your final mark. Super straightforward for 20% of your total marks. That's because ultimately your whole project is make this blog. This is just one little part of it. So that's about all there is to it. Yeah, I could walk you through other blogs, but if you so wish, like if you're interested in seeing what 1 or 2 of my logs have looked like, I could even walk you through my friend's blog, which is, well, she's been running for much longer than me. And as well, if you have any questions, feel free to shout out. But at this point, I am going to jump back to CamView for a minute. There we go. How are we all doing? Do we want to see some examples of blogs, just for some inspiration? Do we want to talk about the news? Do we want to call it early? We're running a tad early. I've only been streaming it for an hour, so. But like, feel free to tell me to shut up so that you can go and do your actual work. In the meantime, I'm going to pull up a blog. So this one I just pulled up. This is my friend Sarah, who's been doing this, well, been using this blog for a year and a half now. At this point, she's used it to kind of make a brand for herself, make a name for herself. So much so she got to do shoot some photography and hang out with quite a few local artists. From LT the Monk, which is a Mohawk or former Mohawk student. So she got to hang out with one of the guys from the Trues, which if you don't know is a local-ish band. They're working out of Hamilton now. So we got a little intro. Just here's who I am, here's what I'm doing, currently living in Hamilton. Take a look around the blog for some reading, gallery for some looking, contact page for some chatting. How cute. We've got a little gallery here. We got some new releases for her articles. But then up top, we go into the blog. This is where, I've said this is where the rubber hits the road, right? Sarah, it's a question of, put up or shut up. As far as article writing, she's been writing. She keeps writing. She keeps posting week after week. That's what keeps people coming back. That's what keeps people noticing her content. It's all well and good to be an interesting person. It's all well and good to have a cool concept. But unless you continue creating, it's not going to mean much. Good artists get good because they practice a lot, because they show people their work. Same with anything creative. Also, yes, LT the Monk is awesome. He's a really cool dude, and his music is sick. Like Emily Rose, reaction or articles on different singles, Dirty Rick, Drop Top Alibi, who I feel like I've seen. Sorry, Diatribe. 3 local artists to check out. So not everything's even music. Some of it, again, she has different categories like I was talking about. Sorry about the sudden scrolling. She has music, she has art, she has stuff that's being published elsewhere. In the case, it's just this one piece on the inlet. But that honestly wasn't all that long ago. Even has a think piece category, which is tad pretentious in my opinion, but love Sarah to death, so I'll never judge her on it. Yeah, she's the example of someone who took a straightforward little blog and turned it into something with meat. Sorry, I realized I was on cam, so let me throw up the blog link just for anyone who's interested. There's the blog link. I'm gonna switch back over to display. I should never switch to cam mid-lecture. I always forget that I'm on cam. So let me go back, and I just want to show the sheer quantity of pieces that she's done in the last year or so. Like, she's posting April 8th, April 10th, April 12th, May 2nd, June 10th, July 16th, October 16th, November 4th. She's posting, on average, at least once a month. If not a bit more. And these aren't simple articles where she can just come up with an idea and just write about it. These are articles where she's meeting people, she's talking to people, she's interviewing with them, which is the journalism side of this kind of thing that I highly, highly encourage. Because it makes for more meaningful content. Let's see this link. There. So I assume this is your blog that you're linking in here. Mind if I pull it up on stream? I'd love to take a quick look. I'm going to pull up a random article by Sarah at this point. So let's look at. I happen to be here for this event, actually shooting photos with Sarah. But she essentially reviewed it, just the show. It was just a few bands who were specializing in covers of different punk bands. Who do we have? What were the covers? They were covering NoFX, Bad Religion, and the Ramones. Just two classic 80s punk and, well, 80s, 90s punk, and one classic 70s punk. But what's cool about this, I will check that blog in 1 second. What's cool about this is outside of her normal review and the photos she shot, which aren't like, these photos are not mind-blowing examples of photojournalism. Like, they're good photos, but they're not going to win any Pulitzer Prizes. That's not what matters. What matters is these photos show what's going on. Even this first photo, which is just This Ain't Hollywood sign, the ice on it gives us just that feeling of walking in from a cold night into this warm bar, this warm venue, where your feet kind of stick to the floor because of all the beer that was spilled. Man, I'm going to miss This Ain't Hollywood, which is where this was. But yeah, so I'm going to pull up this other blog. Where did I throw it? There we go. Mala Suerte, I believe. I think that's how you would pronounce that. So we got, so far, super straightforward, very, 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 very clean, clean design. We got our reviews page, 2 articles, which I'll look at in a second. And we'll have interviews, miscellany, and contact. Of course, I very much acknowledge that this is a work in progress. Out of curiosity, which of the posts is your own? Let's see some favorite releases of 2019. Auto Physique. Yeah, like other page is currently empty. Yeah. Again, a work in progress. No judgment. There. Yeah, like this is the top 5 as an example is a classic blog post. It's a really easy way to talk about something you're familiar with, to flesh out an idea, and it doesn't require you to go out and interview 16 people, dig up the truth of a story. There's a lot of value in that. That said, I recommend the journalism. I recommend the interviewing. Oh, we got some reviews coming through on chat. Yes, ultimately, I'm going to need some sort of about page, even if it's only temporary. But all in all, like you're already starting, right? Okay. 2 different favorite releases. Yeah, I dig it. Like, I'm excited to see where you take this. But already there's clearly a voice in the writing. What's nice is that you can, because you're not saying, well, it's like, if I'm not saying, oh, this is Christopher Arndt's food blog, I don't need to worry about my own voice, right? I don't need to worry about representing Christopher Arndt. Instead, you're representing your character, your persona, your publication. And that's a very, very beneficial thing to have. Sarah has to worry about the people who see her on a daily basis being like, oh, well, that's Sarah, and she just said this about that band. Whereas with something like this, you're not necessarily hiding behind it. I'd never say someone's hiding behind this. But you're reaping the benefit of being able to take like one step divided from who you are versus what you're writing, which is beneficial. There's a reason a lot of writers throughout history have written under pseudonyms or pen names. Whether it's been too dangerous to write under their own name, or just, again, for that anonymity. It has a lot of advantages. So with that, I am very excited to see what you guys come up with for your own blogs. Blogs are, when someone puts a lot of effort into a blog, when someone really tries to make something their own and throws their own voice, their own personality into something like this, it can make for really, really cool content. So I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. If it's anything like your Instagram assignments, which was another opportunity to do that, I think I'll be very pleasantly surprised. With that, I am going to switch back to Cam and not leave Cam, not talk about what's on the screen you can't see. Does anyone have any questions before I kill the stream for today? About Wix, about the assignment, about what's coming up in class. Ultimately, our upcoming weeks are not going to be specifically about blogging. They'll be about different things we can apply to our online content. Like, for example, tying down locations of things through mapping, tying down the chronology of things through a timeline, and how we can use that on our content. We'll also talk about analytics on one week. I think I might talk about photojournalism another week. It's hard to keep track. But yeah, with that, if no one has any other questions, then that's about it for today. If you are interested in, well, later on today at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be doing another chill photo editing live stream where I just kind of hang out with chat. We talk. I maybe drink. Never mind, I don't have beer. But where I'm not so much a teacher, I'm more a streamer. Where I'm just going to edit some photos and chat with whoever may be there. So if you are interested, again, 5 p.m., same channel, same place you are already. So, and I think I have 2 photos lined up. One of a slow exposure downtown Hamilton with a city bus, nice and pretty. The other is some, not cherry blossoms, magnolia blossoms. I figure they're nice because it's springtime. But you can also see those photos at my Instagram. And for those who are students, Mohawk students, I look forward to seeing your assignments. If you have any questions, you have my email. And with that, I hope you have a good one. Stay safe, stay informed, and please make sure to keep washing your hands and social distancing. Have a good one.